Hello everybody, I'm Franklin Habit. Welcome back to my workroom in Paris. It's gray and chilly today, as is usual for Paris in the winter, but I'm feeling positively sprightly. Since we last met, I've survived my first Christmas season in France. And I use the word survived very deliberately because it turns out Christmas and New Year's Eve around here, they are a genuine test of endurance. I supposed, foolishly, that as an American, I was already well accustomed to eating and drinking a lot during the holidays, but the French take overindulgence at the table to a level that I had never experienced. I had a small gathering of good friends here at the apartment and contributed my first ever bûche de Noël to the festivities. My friends said it was a good one, and they ate it up. And in fact, we all ate and drank and made merry to the point that I took several days to recover. And just as I recovered, New Year's Eve rolled up, and I was scheduled to head to the countryside outside the town of Beauvais with another group of friends. We installed ourselves in a pretty little vacation house built from an old barn and immediately began to eat and drink. And we did not stop until the afternoon of New Year's Day, when we finally got up from the table and waddled into Beauvais to have a look at the cathedral and get some fresh air. Now, Beauvais Cathedral is an eyeful and then some. When you're standing in front of it, I know this sounds like a cliche, but it genuinely does seem to be a dream or a mirage. You can't quite comprehend it. It is famously two things: very tall and very rickety. When it was begun, when it was under construction, builders all over Europe were trying to build the tallest possible cathedral. And Beauvais beat the record early on, but then a bunch of it fell down. Much later, they built a tower for it, but then the tower fell down. And technically, it's still incomplete, and it's still standing, but they found out recently that it's not terribly sturdy. Surprise, surprise. And so it's got enormous braces on the inside holding it up. So upon reflection, maybe it's best that we got there after they locked up the doors, and so we had to stay outside. After that, we went back to the house and ate and drank some more. I swear, the French flag should be redesigned so that instead of the blue, white, and red, it's just a big white rectangle with a fork and spoon on it. After I had recovered from New Year, then there was Epiphany, which has its own special cake that you have to deal with. And then you're through it, and you can begin to live again. In the aftermath, I have found myself suddenly very determined to finish everything. Everything. I've been getting this workroom really, truly settled and set up a bit every day, in part so that I can do a video tour for you. And that has meant taking another hard look at my tools and my stash. I did that before I moved, of course, and I made a lot of tough choices, but now I'm doing it again. This is a Paris apartment, space is tight, and if I don't need it, it needs to go. Not that I have stopped acquiring new tools, mind you. I mean, let's not be silly. In fact, I had been mourning my old Singer treadle sewing machine, which was much too bulky to drag over here, much too heavy to drag over here, and so it went to a very nice new home in Michigan. I brought my hand crank machine, the one that was anonymously left outside my door and that I did a video about. I'll put a link to it. But still, I was feeling the loss of that big treadle machine. And then I found an online listing for the machine that's right behind me right now, and whom I have dubbed Clotilde. I would like to show you Clotilde. Clotilde arrived in this very pretty little Art Deco cabinet, almost certainly not her original cabinet, since I believe that it is much later than she is. It took some doing to buy her, because she had been used as a decoration for about 10 years previously by her last owner, and her last owner was terrified that I was going to complain if she wasn't in perfect working order, and refused to guarantee that she would be in perfect working order. So I took a bit of a gamble, but I was willing to do it because I've fixed old machines before, and was pretty certain that if there was anything mildly wrong with her, I'd be able to take care of it. Her framework was in near perfect condition, and so was the inside of the cabinet. The outside of the cabinet showed the signs of having been a plant stand for far too many years. But my first glimpses of the machine itself? Well, very promising. Now, this was by no means a museum-quality, beautifully untouched machine. Clotilde clearly was used, and used heavily, before her time as a decoration. She's got pin rash and scuffs and scrapes and worn-out decals and all the sort of cosmetic things that, well, who am I to complain? I'm acquiring a lot of wear from use myself as I get older, and I'm not nearly as old as Clotilde, so really, on the whole, I find her to be lovely. That sort of wear, that's the wear that comes from honest use, and honestly, I like it. Now, there was quite a lot of dirt and dust, and also some rust, but where things really count, under the hood, she looked pretty good. I mean, dust is to be expected, but all her parts were there, all the pieces were there, including a bobbin in her bobbin case. And very importantly, when I turned the hand wheel, it was perfectly fine and perfectly fluid, in need of a little bit of oiling, but all the moving parts began to move as intended, including, I love these old bobbin winders. And once I gave her some cleaning, some oiling, some TLC, she sewed again perfectly. So, with Clotilde in working order, I was ready to tackle my first sewing project here, a gym bag, because with my usual perfect timing, I joined a gym here, a very nice gym, just in time for Omicron to make it really dicey to go to the gym. The gyms are open, but I'm not comfortable going. But I took advantage of the lull to make myself the gym bag of my dreams. That meant a shopping fabric trip to Montmartre. And oh, my friends, let me tell you, fabric shopping in Montmartre is one of the best things about living here. The neighborhood with the sewing stores is so fantastic that I'm planning an entire in-depth video tour for when the weather is better. But here's a little peek at it right now. The fabric district is at the foot of the hill, and at the center of things are the two largest stores. Dreyfus-Marché Saint-Pierre, with 5 floors, and across the street, Reine, which has 3. They're like a pair of old frenemies. The stores around are very, very, very different. You have large, high-end places, like this gorgeous haute couture store with fabrics for both home decor and clothing that are so deluxe, so special, so gorgeous, that honestly you kind of get a fabric high just from being in the same space with them. But a lot of the most fun action takes place out on the street because there is so much fabric in this neighborhood that it spills right out of the shops and onto the sidewalks. A lot of what's in these bins is called coupons or cuttings, sort of like bolt ends or remnants, but sometimes really large yardages of really, really, really good fabric. There are even shops like this one of my favorites, Sacré Coupon, which specialize in coupons from the luxury fashion trade, and you can find leather, natural fibers, acrylics, whatever you're looking for. And if it seems messy, you just ask the staff and they know what's where. I don't know how they do it, but they do. And then there are streets and streets of small shops that specialize in trims or closures or upholstery fabrics or curtain fabrics or stuffing and padding, or this place, which I really love, that specializes in costumes for the stage. So you have plumes, fringes, sparkly trims of all kinds, wigs, you name it, they got it. If you're thinking to yourself, wow, that sounds like cosplayer heaven, yeah, basically, it really is. I not only found what I wanted for my gym bag, but all 3 fabrics were coupon, so I saved a ton of money. Mind you, it still cost more than just buying a bag, but it was so much more fun. And, well, let me show you. I got my pattern from this book, Monsieur, Couture pour homme, by Maud Vadon, and this is what I made, her bowling bag-inspired gym bag, which uses 2 main fabrics, and then the trim is also used as an accent on the main zipper. The bag has 2 zippers, the first that I've ever installed using a machine, and I'm pretty proud of how this thing came out. It doesn't look at all like a typical men's gym bag, but, well, that's part of the point. Make it yourself, and you can have what you want, not what someone else thinks you should want. And as I attempt to finish all the things, of course, I am also taking a hard look at my pile of works in progress. Some of these unfinished pieces have been in the pile so long I'm afraid they're going to start to compost. I am pleased and relieved that I've got 2 finished scarves to show you right now. And though these scarves are fundamentally different, one is knit, one is woven, they have 4 key things in common. 1. I started both of them around the beginning of the pandemic as coping mechanisms. Easy to work on without thinking too much. 2, since I felt incredibly pessimistic about surviving the pandemic, I didn't plan either project very well. For the woven scarf, I picked out a very simple draft, and I did some half-hearted calculations about the length of the warp, but that was about it. For the knitted scarf, worked sideways, so the cast-on number would determine the finished length of the scarf. I just grabbed a 36-inch circular needle and did a knitted cast-on until the cable was really crowded with stitches. 3rd, both scarves, after they were finished, sat around neglected for months. I mean, they crossed the Atlantic Ocean, bedraggled, wrinkled, and just stuffed in with a bunch of other things I decided I'd get to later. Now, I am relieved to say they're finished. And I'm going to show you how I did it, how I finished them, because I think it's interesting to compare the method for wet finishing knitting with the method for wet finishing weaving. Let's look first at the knitting. The scarf is knit in linen stitch, a technique that I love so much that I'm working on a multi-part epic about it for YouTube. It's made from 2 balls of Noro Silk Garden sock yarn, and should have been wider because I had intended to use all of both balls to knit it. But the night before I left Chicago, I did a rather rapid bind off on the piece to steady my nerves and to be able to call it done before the move. Now it needs a good laundering, and also it's wrinkled and rumpled and needs a nice wet block to set it. I let it soak overnight in tepid water with a little bit of wool wash in it, and the next morning, bright and early, lifted it carefully out of the water. When a knit piece is soaked, it might stretch under its own weight. We want to control that, so we always support it with both hands, and I'm giving it good squeezes. I'm squeezing it, but not wringing it, to begin getting some of the moisture out of it. Then to get even more moisture out of it so that we can hasten the drying process, I am going to wrap it in a nice clean towel, put it on the floor, and jump on it to squish as much of the water out of it as possible. now it needs to be laid out to dry. Once upon a time, I would have done this in the largest flat surface that I could possibly find, but this apartment is equipped with this incredibly fun drying rack suspended by pulley lines from the ceiling in the bathroom. I have a washing machine, but, this is my dryer. Now, as you can see, crowding the needle as I did, I got, the scarf is definitely not too short. It's too long. It is close to 13 feet long. No wonder this sucker took me so long to knit. So anyway, once it's been squished and is still damp, spread it out, and here I am raising it up to the ceiling to allow it to dry. At this point, it's just a matter of time. Let the knitted piece dry absolutely completely. It should be bone dry to the touch, and that's going to take as long as it takes. Okay, so with that process in mind, let's consider wet finishing a piece of weaving. And you'll see that in many ways, wet finishing weaving means taking care to do a lot of things we took care not to do with the knitting. Weavers often say that a piece is not finished until it's wet finished, and that's because until it's wet finished, it may be hard to see, but this fabric is still not really united. It's still a web of separate fibers that need to be brought together through the process of fulling or felting to create one solid fabric. It looks solid, but it's not. When you touch it, you can feel the threads move. They're going to be prone to snag. The fabric is going to be unstable. So we need to felt it, to full it. And for that, we need heat and moisture. And so here we have hot water. This time, rather than tepid water as we used for the knitting, we're using hot water. We are also putting in a bit of gentle soap, which is also going to assist in the fulling process. And the fabric needs to get nice and soaked, but we are going to start the next part of the process before the water gets cold. And the next part is agitation, friction, which we will achieve using a little plunger. I learned this trick from Judith Mackenzie, who uses a plunger in order to agitate woolen spun yarns. I use it for that, and I also use it for this. My washing machine will not provide the right kind or the right amount of agitation, so I agitate by hand. This is also just, frankly, a lot of fun. Squish, squish, splish, splosh, in the hot soapy water for quite some time. I think I did this for, maybe 10 minutes to make sure that the piece had been evenly and fully agitated. Now, out of the water, and we want to get rid of as much excess moisture as we can. And this time I can go ahead and wring it. No need to be delicate, no need to squeeze it. I could dance on it if I want to, but didn't want to get my socks damp this time. So I am wringing out the moisture, and then I take it to the ironing board and I iron it dry. A still damp, wet finished piece should not be allowed to lie around with wrinkles or creases in it, because at this stage you risk having those wrinkles or creases potentially become permanent. And unless that's actually your goal, and there are wovens that are designed to be all crinkled when they're finished, that's a real headache if that happens to you. And here are the finished scarves in action on the only model I could get for what I was willing to pay. The knitted scarf is smoother, the stitches are more settled. It's about the same shape, but it feels much softer, and the yarn has fluffed up admirably. Scarf is awfully long. I may actually cut it down to a more manageable size. The woven scarf, on the other hand, is both shorter and narrower than it was before it went through its bath, and that's to be expected, and it's a good thing, because now the fabric is not only softer and more lofty, but it both feels and looks more finished, more complete, more whole, and I'm delighted. Now, I'm not finished with everything, still not finished with everything, but I'm less unfinished than I was before. I also should finish this video because it's getting very long. In the next episode, I'm going to tell you the story about what's on my needles right now. Not these needles, different set of needles. It's a special project made from 2 hand-spun yarns. One is mine, one came from a friend. That's all I'm going to say for now. Until then, I hope that you love what you're making. I'll see you next time. Hey there, it's me, Franklin. Thanks for watching this video, and thanks for sticking around to this special place at the end where all the others have clicked off, maybe to watch another more popular YouTube channel like Arnie and Carlos, and it's just you and me, and I can whisper to you those words you love to hear, words like and subscribe and Patreon. I gotta stop this. I'm starting to creep myself out. Okay, yeah, thanks for watching. Please please subscribe to the channel. I'm gonna go feed the cat now. Yeah, thanks. Bye.